All right, so we're going to go over some more information about the history of families. So, do you remember when we did up the timeline on the board? We put two main lines to show two significant times where families changed. The first one is the mid 1800s, early 1900s. It was the Industrial Revolution. And then the 1960s, women's rights, women going out into the workplace. Now, before the mid 1800s, early 1900s, before the Industrial Revolution, mainly families were farming, or even before that, it was hunter gatherers. So families were very self sufficient, but it was really about survival, right? Families got together to bear children, to survive, and then you have the Industrial Revolution. Families start moving to cities, to urban areas, and the men start working in factories. What some women do as well, start working in the factories, and high school education becomes more important after the Industrial Revolution. Then 1960s, women's rights, women going out into the workforce. Remember we talked about how you start seeing white women taking on the jobs for the first time of men in factories during World War II, and so that really changed families, because even in the 1950s, when women started, went back into the home to make babies with the baby boom, it really changed the course of family life, because women got a little taste of freedom, and they started encouraging their children, their daughters, to have careers, go to college, and then you start to see in the 60s, 70s, 80s, more and more women going out into the workforce, and even after marriage. So you have farming, country life. Life was about survival. Then after the 1900s, you start seeing city life, factory work, and now we're in the post-industrial, offshoring. So post-industrial, the factories are going off of our shores and going to other places, other countries where you can get people to work for less, labor is cheap, and the jobs that are staying here are more technology and service type jobs that tend to require more college education. And that's kind of changed families as well. Okay, so we're going to write down the different names for matchmaking. How did we meet? How did people meet their partners throughout history? And then the types of marriage, and then divorce. So a sentence I made up to help me remember it, and you can use a different one, is could dating Harry or Harriet um, in Canada involve riding a train underground? You use whatever works for you. But could dating Harry or Harriet in Canada include riding a train underground? You can think of an underground train, the subway, a train that's underground in Canada. So could dating Harry in Canada involve riding train underground? So that's the sentence that you use to remember the first letter of each of these. For the matchmaking, so before the Industrial Revolution, in farming, country life, it was courtship. And then after the Industrial Revolution in cities, you saw more dating. And then today we see more hooking up. So there's a outline included. I'll put a link to it that specifies what each of these are and the different types of marriage. We already went over this, but in case you weren't in class or you want to refresh your memory, I will include that outline. If you want to know where the outlines are, you can go to our class, right? And make sure to hit over to the left. There's a menu that you might just see an arrow, or you might see where it says content. You hit that, and then way down here, you'll see history of the family, matchmaking, marriage, cohabitation, and then also a divorce outline. So I just hit one of them, and here it'll explain courting, dating, hooking up, the different types of marriage and such. And then you have the different types of marriages. In farming days, it was an institutional marriage. And then after the Industrial Revolution, there was a little bit more love in there, but it was definitely about partnership, man being the breadwinner, woman being the homemaker. That was a companionate marriage. They were companions. And then today is a very much individualistic type marriage. And check out that outline. It explains what these different types of marriages are. And lastly, the different eras of divorce. In colonial days, farming days, you had restricted divorce. After the Industrial Revolution, you had divorce tolerance. And then today we have unrestricted divorce. And there's an outline about divorce as well on Blackboard, and that I'll include a link to that as well. All right, for courtship, I'm gonna include a link to a video where you're gonna see I think it was the Duggars family. I think that's what it's called, where they believe in courtship, not dating, not hooking up. The family practices courtship, that the parents are involved in arranging the marriage, that courting means that you only kind of hang out with, court somebody that you plan to be married to, that there's not much privacy, that you are chaperoned while before marriage. So what are the pros and cons? What do you think? So watch this video and yeah, write down some pros and cons on a sheet of paper. Is courtship a bad thing, good thing? What could be good? What could be bad? I'm going to include a link to a video about hooking up. So, hooking up is what sociologists call what's happening today. I don't agree that relationships are all about sex without commitment. I think that there's, some people do courtship, some people do dating, some people do some hooking up, but I don't think it's all hooking up going on. But anyways, what are the pros and cons of hookup culture? You're going to watch the video and take a couple notes and write down your thoughts. What are the pros and cons? Today, there are individualistic marriages, if people are getting married at all. So when people are getting married, what they're looking for, a term that you need to know, is called homogamy, or it's called assortative marriage, and that means that partners with similar socioeconomic statuses, similar earning potential, class, ethnicity, religion, age. So we tend to partner up with people that are very similar to us, and we pick out our own marriage partners compared to, say, um, arranged marriages in the past. So we tend to pick out partners that are similar to us. In the study guide, I wrote gender. That isn't included in the underneath homogamy. Okay, I mean it could be, but not necessarily. So homogamy means that we tend to pick out partners that are similar to ourselves. Another term related to marriages today is called the marriage gradient, and that means that women tend to marry men that are slightly older and taller, and men tend to marry women that are slightly more attractive, according to research. So it's just called the marriage gradient. You tend to see people marry up a little bit, even though we tend to look for people that are very similar. You do see a little bit of marrying up, or it's called the marriage gradient, with women marrying slightly older, taller, and men marrying slightly more attractive. That's according to research. Today, with marriages, when we're trying to find a partner, what we see is that men today are seeking out partners with similar earning potential. Now, when we were looking after the Industrial Revolution with companionate marriage, really it was more about having similar religious beliefs. Are you going to find a partner that is going to complement you, be a good homemaker? Today, men are looking for partners with similar earning potential. That's more important than, say, religious beliefs, than say a generation ago. So today, cohabitation is becoming more common. That's, living with somebody before marriage, or instead of marriage. So today, what we see is that there's more cohabitation, less people are getting married. Although in the United States, marriage is still very important compared to other industrialized societies. There's more people having kids outside of marriage, and I'm going to include a video that talks about the marriage. Why are people deciding to get married? What are the benefits? What are the pros? What are the cons?